as we discussed before the end of previous session, that we'll go for the demonstration of k-means clustering algorithm. And k-means clustering algorithm is one of the most popular partition-based clustering algorithm, in which we specify the value of the k, and depending on that value, the algorithm, it performs the clustering to give us those many clusters. Okay. So let's see how to do it using the R language. Okay. So I have written a file, an R script to perform the k-mean clustering. Okay. So that I'll demonstrate in front of you. Okay. So this is our k-means.r file. So in order to perform the k-means clustering using the R software tool, the stats package of R, okay, it provides a method called k-means. Okay. In its simplest form, you specify your data set which you want to cluster. Then you specify the centers, how many clusters you want. Okay. And since k-means clustering, it basically it is influenced by the initial selection of the cluster centers. So if we want to repeat it, we can specify how many times we want to take the samples for the clusters. So that n start, like how many times we want to restart it, so that finally the whatever is the best clustering based on the objective function that results. So that we can specify over there. Okay. So for this, okay, for our this session, we are using the library tidyverse. This is one of the R's popular library for data manipulation and visualization. Then there is a library cluster, okay, package cluster, which provides many methods for the cluster analysis. Okay, so that also we'll be using. Then there is a package Facto Extra. This will be using for our cluster visualization. It provides some easy to use functions to extract and visualize the output from the multivariate data analytics. Okay. Then if we want multiple graphical plots to be together in the form of a grid, so for that we are using the library grid and grid extra over here. Okay. So let me execute this code. I am just selecting all of them and I'm running it. So all those libraries got included. Okay, fine. Now, for the demonstration of this k-means algorithm, okay, we are using a data set which is related to the crimes in US. So basically the name of the data set is, it is R's data set, okay, US arrest. US arrests. So in various US states, the arrests based on the various kinds of crime, what happened, it is the data about that. Okay. So data US arrest. Okay. I'm just clicking on this. Okay. So US data is there. Okay. That I am storing in one of my data frame. I'm giving the name USAR. Okay. So I'm just storing it in USAR. So USAR is my data frame, which I'm using. See, it is telling that it has 50 observations. It has the 50 records, 4 variables. Okay. What are those? Okay. I will just double click it. Right. So this is the crime data set. Okay. The row names, they are corresponding to the various states in United States. Right. So there are the 50 states of the United States. They are listed over here, right from Alabama to the Wyoming. Okay. Now, there are 4 columns related to various kinds of crime, murder, assault, rape, etc. And there's a one column which tells about the urban population percentage, that in this state, what is the urban population percentage? Okay. So basically we have all the numerical data and yeah, all the numerical data, right? Okay, let's go back to our R script. Okay. Now I'm doing a little bit, see, pre-processing we already saw in the previous demonstration, in the previous session. Here we are doing the simplest one. We are just omitting the missing values, if any. Okay, and I don't think this has but as a part of the procedure, I'm just doing na.omit, that if there is any missing value, just discard that record. Okay, so I'm doing this. Okay, so basically I did na.omit. Okay, after that I want to scale. Okay, because the ranges, I want to standardize my data in that particular range, right? So I'm using the scale function. Okay, so what it does, as I said, is every value it is that the mean is subtracted from the value, and after that that is divided by the standard deviation of the values in that particular column. Okay, so we are doing this, right? So we got now our USAR. It is, see, all the values got normalized over here. So we have all the normalized values, right? I'll close this. Okay. Now let's say what we are doing is, now we are applying the k-means algorithm. Okay. So I am providing three parameters over here. The first parameter is my data set itself. So US arrest my data set, data frame name I am specifying. Okay, let's say initially I want only two clusters. So I am telling that I want two centers. Okay, and I want that this should be the 25 times I want to take the initial clusters, and I want the result of this after various trials, because this is susceptible to the choice of the cluster center. So we are telling that, okay, do it 25 times. Okay, so let's say I will run this. Yes. So the result of the k-means clustering, I have stored in a variable km2. I have given 2 because I am creating two clusters. Later we'll be creating 3, 4, 5 clusters also. So simply I have given the name km2. So we'll remember that this is the output of the two clusters. Okay. Now, what is this? We want to see the structure of this particular KM2. Okay, so I am just str. Okay, so it is giving me some details about the KM2, that it has clusters, it has centers, then it has various parameters, total squares, sum of squared errors, then within cluster squared errors, then total within cluster squared errors, then between cluster squared errors, then size of the clusters, etc. It has so much information in that. Okay. Now let's see, any of the component I can specify by using the dollar sign. So if I say km2.centers, okay, so basically it will give me what are the cluster centers. So let me run this. So see over here, it is giving me how many clusters. We specified two clusters, right? So the two cluster centers are there. So the first cluster center, its coordinates are, is the average murder value in that particular cluster. Okay. The average assault value in that cluster, the average urban population in that cluster, and average this rape value in that particular cluster. This is one cluster center. And the second cluster center is given over here. So we got the coordinates, the points, the two cluster center points and their dimensions for the various attributes are there. Okay, hope the things are clear. Next is, we want to know how the clustering is performed, like which object, which state is assigned to, or the which cluster. Okay, so for this I am doing km2 $cluster. Okay, so what is the output? You see over here the output. It is telling that Alabama is in cluster 2, Alaska is in cluster 2, Arkansas is in cluster 1, California is in cluster 2, Connecticut is in cluster 1, right? Nebraska is in cluster 1. So for all the 50 states, it is providing its a label that which cluster 1 or cluster 2. Okay. So that way we got it's a result over there. Okay. Now let's say I want to know, okay, uh, let me tabulate it. Let me tabulate. There is a table command. So it's a categorical tabulation we can get through that. Okay. So if I run that, it is telling me that in the cluster 1, and the 30 states they are in cluster 1, and 20 states they are in cluster 2. Meaning is these 30 states they are similar in the crime pattern, and the other 20 they are similar in the crime pattern. Okay. The similar thing you can get through the size also, size of the cluster. So KM2 dollar size. Okay, if I run this, okay, then I am getting, see the size is, it is giving me 3020, means the first cluster size and the second cluster size. Okay, now comes about the various kinds of errors. So if you recall, I have discussed with you that the objective functions for the function for the k-mean clustering is we want to minimize the sum of the squared errors, right? So there is within SS. So within cluster, what is the sum of the squared error for each of the clusters? Okay, so let me run this km2 dot within SS. If I run this, so it is giving me for the cluster 1 within cluster sum of the squared error is 56 point something, and in cluster 2 within cluster sum of the squared error is 46.74. Okay, and if I see the total within sum of the squared, it is basically the sum of the squared error for the whole clustering. It is the sum of all the clusters individual within sum of the squared error. So if I do this, it will give me the sum of the previous two, that is 102 times 0.86 something. Okay, I also want to know what is the average distances between the clusters. So that is between SS. Okay. So if I run this km2 dot between SS, it is giving me that on average, the distance between the cluster is 93.13. Okay. And total sum of the squared error, it is basically the sum of the total dot within SS and between SS. So if I do this, it will give me the sum of that inter-cluster distance and the within cluster distance. It's a sum. It is giving me in the form 196. Okay. Now, so okay, we applied the k-means clustering for the 2 clusters. Okay, now we'll apply the k-means clustering for 3 clusters. So I applied this. What I changed is centers I changed to 3 over there, and the output of the clustering I am storing in KM3. Similarly, in the next call to the k-means, I am calling it with centers equal to 4, and I am storing it in KM4. Then center is equal to 5, I am storing it in KM5, right? So I am running k-means for number of clusters 3. Then I am running for number of clusters 4, and I am running the number of clusters 5. So I am getting this. Our results are, see, you can see these variables on the right hand side in the global environment, KM2, KM3, KM4, KM5, all these are the clustering results corresponding to the number of clusters 2 to 5 respectively. Okay. Okay, so we got a lot of information about the clustering, but still it is always better if we can visualize the cluster, right? So for that, we are making the use of the function fviz cluster. Okay, so basically function to visualize the cluster, fviz cluster. Okay. Now in this function, we are specifying, we are giving the clustering output parameter, the data also we are specifying. Okay. Repel equal to true, I am specifying, because if the points are too close, then if the names of the states are if the states are too close in distance, then the names will overlap one over the other. So I just want to repel it. So I'm telling true, okay. Then I'm giving the name cluster plot of the crime arrest data. X label, X and Y labels I'm not giving. And theme I'm giving minimal, theme minimal. It is various kinds of themes are there. Depending on that, you see the plots. The background theme changes the basically theme or the background of the plot. Okay, so we are taking the theme minimal over here. If I run this fviz cluster for KM2 output of the number of clusters 2, if I run this, okay, see it has given me the 2 clusters over there. So I'll zoom it. Okay, so the things will be okay. So you can see the 2 clusters over here, right? One cluster is there with I think 20 states, and the another cluster with the right. This is cluster 1 with 30 states. Okay, and this is cluster 2 with the 20 states. Okay, so this way, so this shows that the crimes in these states, they have the similar pattern, and the crimes in these states, they have the similar patterns. And here we have specified k equal to 2, right? So good enough, right? So it's easy also. You don't have to code the various steps of the k-means clustering and algorithm, right? You have a k-means function in which you can specify the various parameter. You can provide your data over there, and you get the clustering output. You can visualize it also nicely. Okay, so I'll just kill this. Okay, so now, okay, so now let's say I want to make it the elliptical, the shape. Okay, so I'm just setting one more parameter, ellipse type equal to norm over here. Okay, just from the previous call of fviz cluster, I have just changed this parameter that I want in the elliptical form, this thing, right? So, and if I execute this, see, I am getting the output in this way now, right? Right. So this is basically, maybe if you like this, you can use it in this way. Otherwise, that way, right? Yeah. Okay. So, okay. Now let's change the theme. Okay. So earlier we used the theme minimal. Okay. If I use the theme this gray, then see how does it look? Oh, sorry. Spelling mistake. Okay. Theme gray. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So see, it is little bit. The background is gray. Okay. Let's say I want to make it the theme dark. Okay. So basically the various themes, if you do this underscore over here, so it's coming theme black and white, theme classic, theme dark. So if I choose theme dark over here, okay, and if I run it, so see, this is the dark theme. Okay, depending on your color and all, whatever you like. Okay, that way, this is the dark theme over there. Then there is one more. If you want the lines over there, the grid lines and all those, then there was a theme related with something line. Okay, let me see. Yeah, line draw. Okay, line draw. Okay, if I use that, then you will be getting the grid lines. Okay, in case if you need that, okay, you can have it, right? So if we go to the details of the fviz cluster function, basically it has various parameters through which you can change the displaying of the clusters over there. Okay, so this much is enough for us here. Okay, now let's go for the visualization of the 3 cluster. So I am giving KM3 as the input for this. I want to visualize 3 clusters. Okay, I am using theme minimal over here. Okay, 3 clusters. Okay, so 3 clusters got visualized. See, so we are getting this 3 clusters, right? So the states this way. If you form 3 clusters, then these are the related states in terms of the crime features. Let's do it for KM4. So yes, it has drawn for 4 clusters, right? So we see 4 clusters like so, right? So these are the division or the clustering of the states based on their crime patterns or crime arrests. Okay. Similarly, KM5 for 5 clusters. Right. So these are the 5 clusters. Okay. Okay. Let's say if you want to do the comparative study, so in the same plot or on the same screen, you want to arrange them in the grid one after another. Okay. If that is the case, then all my plots I am storing in different variables, right? So I am storing my plots, plot 1, plot 2, plot 3, plot 4, okay, over here in the 4 variables. Okay. So plot 1, plot 2, plot 3, plot 4, these are my, the plots which we saw just now. Okay. Now I am calling grid.arrange method and I am specifying that arrange plot 1, plot 2, plot 3 and plot 4 in 2 rows. Okay. And give the name. Okay. At the top, we want to keep the text a cluster plot of US crimes data. Okay. So let me execute this command grid.arrange. Okay. Now let me zoom it. So you can see how the clustering is performed when 2 clusters, when 3 clusters, 4 clusters, 5 clusters. Here we have given points. We use geom points, so the points are appearing over there. We could have done with the name for the names also, the text. Okay. So, but since lots of the text would have overlapped on each other, I have given over here points. Okay. The comparing of the plots, okay, the same thing, but we are using elliptical shaped this thing. And if I'm doing the same thing, but I want the elliptical shape, so it is something like this. Okay. 2 clusters, 3, 4, 5 clusters. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. Now there is enhanced analysis using eClust. Okay. So basically there's a eClust method provided by in R. Okay. That also can be used for k-means clustering. That can be used for multiple clustering. In fact, eClust can be used for a number of clustering methods. Okay, so here we are performing the k-means clustering using eClust method. Okay, see what is the beauty of this is here we need not specify the number of clusters. Okay, we do not specify the number of clusters based on the various heuristics and the gap statistic plot and all those. It tries to find out the basically the statistics what will be suitable. Okay, so we are using eClust. We are specifying the data. USAR is our data. Which algorithm I want to do? K-means algorithm. N start I am specifying 100 over here. Okay. So let me do this. Okay. So it is doing it for me. See down, it is taking time because 100 I am telling, right? So it's taking time for that. Okay. So our result is in km, right? Again, print also came. I don't know how it will look and what it will have. We need to do some research on that. So km has various things. I think it has the clustering. The cluster means, okay. Oh, we see here 3 clusters, right? K means clustering with 3 clusters of sizes 13, 20, 17. It is telling. It found out that uh, based on the certain criterias, maybe minimization of the objective function, or there are various other cluster validity measures such as Silhouette measurement or the gap statistics. It found out that the 3 clusters are the optimal, and it created 3 clusters for us. Okay. So the cluster centers are there, 1, 2, 3. See over here. Then the clustering vector is also there. So for every state, we see Alabama is in cluster 2, Hawaii is in cluster 3, okay, while Maine is in cluster 1, Maryland is in cluster 2, like that. So this clustering also we can see over there, right? In this, then maybe the within cluster sum of the squares, that is also seen, see 3. So for each cluster it is there, right? Right, and then between cluster divided by the total, it is giving some more statistics over there, right? So so many components are there: centers, cluster, total SS, within SS, and all those things we can see. Okay, so now we'll proceed. Okay, let's see that uh, based on the output of the eClust. Let's say we want to perform we want to visualize the gap statistics, plot we want to perform. So we are using the method fviz gap stat method. Okay, and what we have extracted from the output of the eClust, the gap statistics we have extracted, and that gap statistics we want to visualize. Okay, if I run this, see what is the output. Okay, see it is telling me this is the gap statistics. Okay, so here we are looking for the knee over here. So from this it found out that the number of clusters 3 over here. Okay, like this. Okay, so based on the certain criteria, like it finds out. Similarly, there is something, there is another Silhouette. Okay, Silhouette, it tells how good the cluster is, how bad the cluster is. Higher values are better, and basically we want to find out a knee over there, the knee or the elbow in the graph. If we plot f with Silhouette over here, so see this is the Silhouette over here. Okay, so basically this is the Silhouette visualization, that what are the Silhouette values for the 3 clusters that it is specifying over there. Okay, the optimal number of clusters, for that there is a parameter nbclust in this, the output of the eClust. So if I see that, it is telling me that as per this, the optimal number of clusters using gap statistics, it is 3 using the gap statistics. See, you remember that if you run this more number of times, then the result may change. It may change to 3 to 4 depending on, after more runs, right? It recalculates the thing and it gives you the number of clusters over there, right? So I think this much is enough as far as the discussion of the k-means is there. I will move back to the k-medoids clustering, right? I want to show hierarchical and the density based clustering also. Okay, k-medoids clustering. Okay, so what difference I said between the k-means and k-medoids? In k-means clustering, we have the centers which may be the imaginary points, or they are basically the average of all the points in the cluster. They need not be the real objects. In fact, most of the time they are not the real objects over there. But in k-medoids clustering, the center, what that we call medoid, the center we call medoid over here. The center is the most centrally located. the data object itself. Okay. So so here in this case, these are the two medoids. Okay. The implementation of k-medoids algorithm, it is done by various researchers. So Pam, Clara, and Clarence. Okay. Pam is partitioning around medoids. Okay. Clara clustering large applications, and Clarence is basically the randomized sampling of Clara, some extension of Clara. It is there. Okay. So let's work on the PAM, partitioning around the medoids. Okay. What do we do in this? So first thing is arbitrarily choose k objects as the initial medoids. Okay. Then repeat these steps until no change happens. Okay. Until like everything is stabilized and no change occurs. Okay. Assign each object to the cluster within the cluster with the nearest medoid. So find out the distances between the medoids and rest of the points, and assign each point to the cluster corresponding to the nearest medoid. Okay. After that, improve the quality of the k-medoids. How will you improve the quality of the k-medoids? Randomly select a non-medoid object or random and compute the total cost of swapping the medoids with the O random. So basically we have initially selected the medoids, right? So with that medoids, basically we are having some sum of the squared error, SSE, for the clustering. So let's say I selected another object, and so I have to see if I replace that object with one of the medoids, will it result in a reduction of the cost, clustering cost? If that is there, then in that case, I'll replace the medoid with that particular object. Okay. So we need to find out the object through which we get the maximum reduction of the cost, right? This we keep doing, okay, till it stabilizes. Okay. So this works since there are lots of computations in this. For every object, we want to swap between the medoids and that particular object, and we want to check whether the sum of the squared error got reduced or not. Okay, so it doesn't scale well for the large data sets. It works well for the small data sets. Okay, so it is not efficient if the data set size is medium or the large. Okay, we'll see the more detail of it. Okay, when we say the swapping cost, so we want to minimize the swapping cost. Okay, so let's say for each pair of a medoid M and a non-medoid object H. Okay, so let's say we are testing, can we replace the object non-medoid object H with the medoid M? So we measure the sum of the squared error. If we keep the same medoid, okay, then what is the sum of the squared error? And if we replace that medoid with H, then what is the sum of the squared error? So we take the difference. Okay, the new object's SSC minus the existing medoid's SSC. Okay, so if the new object's SSC is less, then that means it is reducing the sum of the squared error. So this terminology, we want the minimum, right? So we want to minimize the swapping cost. Okay. So basically the negative, it tells that because of this swapping, we are getting the benefits. Our clusters, they are the more compact. Okay. Now, in this again, there are the four scenarios. Okay. When a medoid M is to be swapped with a non-medoid H, check each of the other non-medoid. How do we compute the cost, swapping cost? So in order to compute the swapping cost, we need to see all the other objects also. Like we have the medoid M, we have the non-medoid object H, which we are looking for swapping. All other non-medoid objects, they are J. Okay. So there are two cases. The other objects, are they in the cluster of M? And the other object J, they are in some other cluster other than the cluster in which medoid M is there. So if J is in the cluster of M, that is one scenario. J is in cluster of some other K, not in M. Okay, that is another scenario. Then if the J is in the cluster of M, okay, so I'll go to the next slide. Okay. Okay, let's say we have the midvoid M over here, and we have a non-midvoid object H over here. Okay. This non-midvoid object H, we want to swap with the midvoid M. Okay. Then for all other objects, okay, we need to see. So if the object J, if it is in the same cluster as M, this is one scenario. Okay. Then in that case, we need to see, okay, what is the first case? The first case is the J is closer to some K than to H. Okay, so I will take you again, right? So this J is there. Okay, this J, okay, which was earlier associated with this cluster because its a center was M. Now we are trying to replace M with H. Okay, now it has to be seen that if we replace M with H, then is there a case that now J will become closer to some other cluster center, K, let's say? If that is the case, then in that case, now the new distance will be djk. Earlier, when we were computing the cost, it was djm. Okay. So in that case, the djk minus djm, it will be greater than or equal to 0, because we know that this point was more closer to m. That's why it was assigned to m. Now it is going to k, right? So basically some error we are introducing to this. So basically we are introducing some cost in this kind of scenario. Similarly, there are other scenarios also. For example, the J is in the same cluster as M. Okay. Now, after this, now since we want to replace H as a replacement for M, now we'll see if we replace H as this center, this cluster center, then after that, whether J will go to the same cluster or will it be closer to H or it will be closer to some other K. So in this case, it will be closer to H. Okay. So in that case, the some change in the cost will be there. So there are 4 such scenarios. When the J is in the same cluster as M, when the J is not in the same cluster as N, whether it is closer to with H or it is closer to some other K, based on that, the costs will vary. So for each point this is done and the costs are calculated, and that swapping which results in minimum swapping cost, that is taken for the replacement. That way we reach to a better solution to it. Okay, so what is the time complexity over here? Okay, so if we see the selection of the K objects, it's simple, just O1 in constant time. But this loop, if we see, it requires n minus k square into k, right? So usually n is too large, right? So if we see, the order is n square order, right? N square into k, that is the time complexity order. So that's why the PAM, the partitioning around midvoids, it doesn't scale well if there is a medium sized or the large sized data set. Okay, so what are the strengths and weaknesses of PAM? PAM is more robust than K-means. Okay, it is robust in the sense that it is not much affected with the noises and outliers. So in the presence of outliers, because a midvoid is less influenced by the outlier than a mean. Okay, PAM works efficiently for small data sizes, but doesn't scale well for the large data sizes. Its time complexity is of the order of big O of k into n minus k square. So right, of the order of n square, let's say, where n is the number of data objects. Okay. So can we find the midvoids a faster way? Because it doesn't scale well with the large data sets. So after that, the Clara came. Partitioning around midvoids, but this we want to do for the large application. Okay, so this was done in 1990 by Kaufman and Russell. Okay, so and this its implementation is there even in R and other packages also. Okay, so what we do in this, so it draws multiple samples of the data set, multiple samples of the data set. So instead of applying PAM on, let's say your data set is of size 1000 objects. So we perform the sampling. Let's say we get only 50 objects, or less than 100 objects, 100 objects out of that. So this 100 objects basically a sample we are taking, and on that sample, which is we think that it will be a representative of those 1000 objects, on that we are performing the PAM, right? So basically, so we are taking large data size, but we are doing a sampling, so reduce the number of data, then we are applying the PAM on that. Okay, so it can handle the larger data sets. Let's say it can apply PAM on the 1000 objects, and we can form around 10 clusters. Okay, so efficiency but the efficiency and effectiveness, that depends on the sampling. How good is the sampling, and how good the samples are the actual representative of the actual database data set. Okay, so in Clara, basically, we are taking the samples multiple times, okay? And for each, we are repeating this Q times. We are drawing the Q samples, okay? Then we are performing this drawing the samples. We are applying the PAM to it. We are computing the cost, right? And then we are trying to find out the sample with the minimum cost, and the one with the minimum cost is the best set of the midwives, and that way. So it is basically working at the top of the Clara. A more sophisticated Clara is, what is the improvement in the time complexity? Earlier it was S minus, earlier it was of the order of some n minus k square or k minus n square earlier. Now n has been replaced with S. N has been replaced with S, where S is the sample size. Okay, so basically from N it has reduced to S, where S is the sample size, right? So we get the improvement in the timing. Yes. Now, strengths and weaknesses. It can handle the larger data sets than the PAM. Okay, weaknesses, efficiency depends on the sample size. Okay, if sample size is large, then again it is whatever PAM problem, those are there, it will be there. A good clustering is based on the sample will not necessarily represent a good clustering of the whole data set if the sample is biased, right? So it depends on how good is the sample. If the sample is biased, then in that case, the results may not be that accurate. Clarence is an improved version of the Clara with the randomized sampling. So I'll just move this. Okay, let's go for the demonstration of PAM. So PAM is partitioning around midwives, K midwives clustering. Okay. Now we are using the PAM function over here. Okay. Here we are giving a, okay, let me see where we are using it. Okay. Yeah, what we are specifying over here, the data set we are specifying the number of clusters, and we are also specifying what is the metric to be used for this. What kind of distance we want to use. We want to use Euclidean distance, we want to use Manhattan distance. So the choices, there are a number of choices for that. We need to see the help of it. So Euclidean and the Manhattan, I think they are the choices over there, right? So we need to specify what we want to do the partitioning based on what kind of distances. Okay, so let's do this. The importing of the library, I am doing it over here by executing this. Then the same US arrest data set, it's omitting and all those, omitting the omitting the missing values and scaling the values, that I am doing it. Okay, and we are printing just the head values. Okay, so I did the pre-processing over here. Yeah, Yeah, even you need not have to specify the metric. It has some default value. I think the default for the distance is Manhattan for PAM. Okay, but if I want to give the Euclidean, I can give Euclidean 2 over here. So if I specify, I call PAM and I do not give any metric parameter, then it takes the Manhattan as the default parameter. Otherwise, I can give Euclidean 2 over here. Okay. So I perform PAM2 with Manhattan with Euclidean. Okay. So now basically our PAM2 result is based on the Euclidean distance. Okay. Now if I print it, what are all the things it gives? So see, it also gives us what are the midwives. Okay. So now you see the midwives are the actual objects over here. They are not the imaginary centers. So two objects, one center is New Mexico, another center, one midwife is New Mexico, another midwife is Nebraska. Okay, and their coordinates they are given. Similarly, the clustering vector is also given. Alabama is related with the cluster whose center is New Mexico, and Connecticut is in a cluster whose center is Nebraska. Okay, so that way the clustering is there. Then the objective function outputs and all those things, they are also there. Okay, then maybe some other things also we can find out. Yeah, there are some other metrics also we can get from there. For that we need to refer the documentation. See, remember one thing that whenever we are using the library, see, we cannot remember everything. Okay, for R, since simply you type the name of, what I do is whenever I face a problem, I say function PAM in R, and I'll be getting it's a documentation over there. Or as I said, you can do here itself, right? You can do this question mark and PAM. So you got the output PAM partitioning around midwives. Okay. So then here you can see the details of the things. Okay. So here we are not going to go in more details about it. Okay. So let's say the various parameters we see. What are the midwives? What is the, uh, okay. Yeah. ID for the midwives. Okay, ID for the midwives is basically one cluster center is the 31st object and the other cluster center is 27th object. Nebraska, I think it is 27th object and the other one is 31st object. Then I can see clustering, objective function value and all those I can see. Okay, if I want these clustering results, like which object goes with which cluster, so for that I can use I can use cbind function, the column bind. So the cluster I am binding with the data itself. Okay, so that the output I am storing in labeled US RS data. Okay, so I am doing the column binding. So if I see the labeled USRS data, so see the cluster number has been combined over here with the data. Now I will know that each data, the state it belongs to which cluster, cluster 1 or cluster 2. Okay, right? So you can do all those things over there. Okay. Now, yes. Okay. Now let me create the other 3 clusters, 4 cluster, 5 cluster. So I'm applying PAM by specifying the number of clusters 3, 4, 5. Okay. So in results, I'm storing in PAM2, PAM3, PAM4, PAM5. And we can visualize the cluster in the same way as we did for the case of the k-means clustering using the fviz cluster function. So if I do that, okay. Yeah, so I got this cluster, 2 clusters. Okay, now when I use k-midwives, I got this kind of clustering over there for 2 clusters. For 3 clusters, I got another clustering for 4 clusters, and for 5 clusters like this. Okay, if you want to compare the plot, we can take all these on the same grid. Okay, and we can check it. as we did for the case of k-means. I'm zooming it. Okay. Okay, for one of them I specified elliptical type. Okay, so we could have done it for all of them. Okay, over here, so we can compare the clusters over there, right? So this was the demonstration for the nedoid Bayes clustering. Okay, now I think I'll quickly move to the hierarchical clustering. Okay, hierarchical clustering. Okay, what is hierarchical clustering? Hierarchical clustering, it produces a set of nested clusters. They are organized as hierarchies, hierarchical tree. They can be visualized as dendrogram also. What is dendrogram? It is a tree-like diagram that records the sequences of merges and splits. Okay. So if you see here, there are a number of objects are there. I think there are some 6 objects are there. They are numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and right. So based on the similarity of the objects they are merged. Okay. So it seems when we take the similarity, there is something called the dissimilarity matrix, a distance matrix, where from every distance of every object to every other object we keep it. Okay. So the one which the minimum dissimilarity, they are merged first. So in this case, what is obvious from this is 1 and 3, they are the most close. So they are merged first into the first cluster we are forming over here. Initially, all the objects, they are the individual clusters. In hierarchical clustering, if you go in the bottom-up approach, in the bottom, all the points. So let's say we have the 6 points over here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the 6 points. Okay. All these 6 points, they are the individual clusters. Now 1 and 3, they are the most close, so we are merging them, right? After, so and for that a dendrogram is formed over here. See, 1 and 3, they got merged over here. This is what the, and the height, it shows that what is their this thing, the distance. Okay. Yeah. Then the next clues are the 2 and 5. Okay. So they are merged over there. Okay. Then after that, uh, this cluster 2 and 5, it's this and the 4, the item 4 or the object 4, which is a cluster, one singleton cluster. Okay. Its a distance is there. So they are merged over there, right? And then this cluster, which consists of 2, 5, and 4, it is merged with the cluster which is consists of the item 1 and 3. Okay. Then finally, the item 6, it got merged. This is hierarchical clustering. Okay. We'll see the details. How does it work? Okay. So what is the dendrogram? It is it shows the similarity between the two objects. Okay. So it has a root over here, it has a leaf for the individual objects. Okay. So the merges, they are represented by the internal nodes over here. Okay. There's an internal branch, there's a terminal branch which goes to the leaf. Okay. These are the various things. Okay. So let's say here 3 objects are there. These 2 objects on the right hand side, they are more close, so they are merged first, then after that they are merged with the third one. Okay. This is dendrogram. Okay. So it can be used, dendrogram can be used for various things like this, as we discussed, the animal evolution hierarchy, what is close to what, based on that they are clustered. Okay. The Darwin's theory and all those, how the evolution happened. So you can have, using hierarchical clustering, you can have such a hierarchy of the classification of various living beings. Okay. So basically its distances are also given over there, or you can apply it to the hierarchical clustering of the website. Okay. So business and economy is there, then it has subclasses, B2B finance, shopping, jobs, then B2B finance again to aerospace, agriculture, etc. So they can be organized. Okay. And then here the word Peter in English, in different European languages, how it is written. If we cluster those various, variants of Peter, cluster them, then how does it will look like? It is something like this: Peter in various European languages. Or if you want to cluster the flags, of hierarchical clustering of flags also can be done. Okay, fine. Now we are more interested in how to perform the hierarchical clustering. So there are two approaches. One is the bottom up approach, agglomerative. Starting with each item in its own cluster, every individual item is a cluster. Okay. Find the best pair to merge, the one which are most close merge to form a new cluster. Repeat this process until all the clusters are fused together. We result in a single cluster over there. This is the bottom up approach. Okay. Then there is a top down approach. Consider all the points to be part of a single cluster. So starting with all the data in a single cluster, consider every possible way to divide the cluster into two. Okay, choose the best division method recursively, and on the divisions again you divide it recursively. Okay, in order to get more clustered till we reach to the singleton cluster. So these are the two approaches. Okay, so agglomerative. Okay, so each data object is a cluster. We have each data object cluster, the first step. Okay, after that, the most close ones we want to merge first. So let's say AB, depending on their distances, the dissimilarity measure, which is stored in the dissimilarity matrix, AB are merged over here. Okay, and then let's say DE are there, they are most similar. Then C and D are there, then AB with CDE, that way, right? So merge two cluster which are the most similar until all the objects are merged into a single cluster. DVG is opposite of it. Okay, all the objects, they are in a single cluster. Then find out the split criteria and split them into two clusters. Okay, so we got, then again recursively apply it. So CD got a split into C and DE. Then after that DE and AB, they got split into two, that way. Okay, so how we'll be getting the clustering? So dendrogram, they can be used for the split and merging of the cluster. What is dendrogram? It's a binary tree that shows how clusters are merged or split hierarchically. Each node on the tree is a cluster. Okay, and each node is each leaf node is a singleton cluster, and each internal node is a cluster. This is a cluster of these 2 points. This is the cluster of all these points, which is in it is the cluster of all the leaves, the set of all the leaves in the subtree whose root is this internal node. Okay, so now let's see how will we split it. Okay, so yeah, let's say we cut this dendrogram at this particular level. So after we cut it, what will happen? After we cut it, okay, so let's say that cut will go, and we got two trees, right? Two tree. So one is this cluster, which consists of these leaves. So we got the two clusters over here, right? Now, okay, let's say let's say we cut it at this level. Earlier we cut it at that level. Now we are cutting it at this level. So dendrogram got cut into at 3 places, right? One cut is here, another cut is here, one cut is here. So we are getting 3 clusters over here, right? So see, these are the clusters. Are you getting? So dendrograms, they are used for the splitting. If we go the opposite way, we'll be basically merging them. Okay. So the algorithm for this is, we have seen, right? How do we do this? Compute the first thing we have to do is we need to compute the proximity matrix. Okay. So we need to find out the distances between each individual object based on some dissimilarity measure we have to use, and we need to get the distances between every object to every other object. Okay. Let each data point be a cluster. Initially, every data point is a cluster. Then in a loop, we are repeating this. Merge the two closest cluster. Okay. So how to find out the closest cluster? That is the question mark, right? So far, the closest point we know, right? Between 2 points based on the dissimilarity measure, Manhattan distance or the Euclidean distance, you can find out 2 points are close. But here we need to find out which are the two closest clusters, because the clusters may have the multiple points too. So how to find out the closeness or the dissimilarity or the link between the clusters? Okay. So we merge it, and after merging it, we need to update the proximity matrix. Okay. And this we keep doing it unless we get a single cluster, right? Only a single cluster remains. So the key operation over here is the computation of the proximity of the two clusters, right? So different approaches to define the distances between the clusters. How to define the distances between the cluster? That is the next we'll see. Okay. So you see here, the initially we have the distance matrix between the each object, right? So this is we call distance matrix, right? So here we have the distances between the objects over here. So let's say the distance between this object and this little object, okay, it is the 8 over here. And the distance between these two objects, it is a 1 over here, right? So we can see the distance is a 1 between these two objects over here, right? We start from this, right? And we start merging the one with which we have the minimum distances, right? So that's how we are doing. Okay, we are keep doing and we are merging it. Finally, we get a single cluster. Okay, we were discussing that how to find out the distance between the cluster. Okay, hierarchical clustering, a demo is here. Just look at it. The closest one are getting merged, and accordingly the dendrograms, they are getting updated. Okay, so based on the closeness of the clusters, the new these things are getting added in the dendrogram. So finally, see, this will happen till we get just 1 point, one cluster. Now we have 4 clusters. Now we have 3 clusters, 2 clusters. Okay, 1. Okay, single. This is the end, right? This. Okay, fine. Then again, it is restarting. So I'll just move to the next slide. Okay. Okay. When we started, we have just the points, right? And we have a distance matrix. We call it proximity matrix between every point. Okay. See, this we are discussing the computational costs over there and the space cost. We need to see if n objects are there, we need n square space, right? Like this n square, cells are required to store the distances over there, right? And they need to be computed too. The distance computation needs to be done. So initially, let's say we have some, let's say 12 objects are there. So it is 12 by 12 matrix is there. Now, as we go, so we'll keep clustering the objects, okay, depending on their dissimilarities. Let's say in between at some stage, we reached where when we have the 5 clusters over there. So we have to update our dissimilarity this also. So we have, let's say for each cluster, we have one, 5 by 5. Now our matrix is 5 by 5. Okay. So this is our matrix. And let's say we decide to merge the clusters C2 and C5 because they are the closest based on some criteria. What is that criteria? That we'll see next, that like how to find out which is the closest. There are various criteria. So let's say C2 and C5, they are the closest over there. If that is the case, then in that case, from the distance matrix, we need to substitute. There's a column for C2, there's a column for C5, there's a row for C2, there's a row for C5. We need to take these out, and rather we need to add one column and one row for their union. Okay, so when we do this, okay, so we got one more cluster, that is C2 union C5, right? So one row is there. So updation of the proximity matrix that is required, like we need to do these things as we proceed in this, right? Yeah. So again, how to find out the distance between the cluster? We know the distance between the data objects, but we do not know how to find out the distance between cluster. Okay. We just treat a data in this, we just treat a data object as a cluster with a single objects. So our only problem is to define a linkage method between the clusters. Okay. There are so many choices. There's something called mean linkage or single linkage. In this method, the distance between two clusters is determined by the distance of the two closest objects. How do we say what is the distance between the clusters? If we have two clusters, we take one cluster, we take another cluster. We find out the closest object from this and closest object from that. And what is the distance that we take as the distance between the clusters? If we take the max link, in that case, basically we consider the farthest object. In this method, the distances between the cluster are determined by the greatest distance between any two objects in different clusters, right? So farthest neighbors, the one which are, so let's say this 5 point, this 5 point. So this thumb point is very far, and this distance is maximum. Okay, so that we take in the max. Okay. Then the group average. Okay, in this what we do is we take the distances between every point of this and that, we sum them up and we divide it by the number of the points over there. In the centroid, we find out the centroid of the two clusters and we measure the difference between the centroids. And the last one is the Ward method. In this, we choose the clusters whose merge will result in the minimization of the objective function. So that is the Ward linkage. Okay. So let's see it. Okay. So in the single linkage, what we do? We find out the closest point. So let's see, these are the two clusters. Now the single linkage, basically we try to find out the closest point. So this is basically we term as the distance between the clusters. Okay. The next one, complete linkage. In this, basically we try to find out the points which are the more apart. Okay. So the 2 points which are at the farthest distance, that distance we consider as the distance between the two clusters. If we go for average link, what we do here, we basically consider the distance of every point from all other point in other. We sum them up, okay, and we take the average of it basically. Then we divide it by the number of these distances. Okay, so we get the average. We take the average of all these distances. Okay. Centroid distance, we calculate the centroid of both the clusters and we take that distance. Okay. So basically this, and the centroid method here, basically the distance we are getting is basically the distance between the two centroids. Now which one to choose? Similarity of the two clusters is based on the most similar points in different clusters. Okay. Okay, let's say when we go for the single link, okay, this is the demonstration of the single link. We have got the 6 points, okay. So as per the single link, we try to find out, initially every point is a single cluster, okay. So now which two are the closest? So if we look, this 3 and 6, they are the closest over here. Okay, based on the single link also, basically the closest point only one point, so their distance is basically this. Okay, so we merge them. Okay, so this became one cluster, all others are another cluster. So now if you consider, right, now which is the next closest to cluster? So basically this 2 and 5, they are the most closest. Okay, the distance between this 3 and 2, it is more than 2 and 5. Okay, so this 2 and 5, as per the single link, they are getting merged over there. Okay, then after that, which two needs to be merged? Okay, so if you see the dendrogram here, right, these two clusters which we formed, the cluster 1 and cluster 2, they are getting merged over there. Why? Because the distance between these two clusters is the distance between the point 2 and the point 3, because they are the closest point over there. And this distance is more than the distance between 2 and 1 and the distance between 3 and 4 over here. So we are merging these clusters. Okay, so if we merge this, then after that, okay, and the next merge is with the point 4. Okay, so basically the closest distance between 4 and this cluster 3 is the distance between 3 and 4. 3 is the closest point over here. Okay, now from the point 1, the closest one is this 2, but this distance is closer between 3 and 4. So we'll merge the 4 first with 3. So we are merging it, okay? And finally we are merging 1. So if we use the single link, we do the merging like this. Okay? So it can handle, okay, let's go to the next kind of merging. Let's say maximum or the complete linkage. Okay, we'll see its example also. Okay, look at this example. The same thing we are doing, but here our linkage criteria is max. Between the two clusters, we are looking the farthest distance. Okay, so now every point is a single cluster over here. Okay, 3 and 6, even as per the max link, okay, the distance, this is the minimum. So we'll merge 3 and 6 first. Okay, then the next, as per the farthest distance, if you see now the distance between, yeah, okay, as per, now the next merge is, okay, I think there is some problem in our dendrogram. So just ignore the dendrogram. Oh, no, it's correct. It's correct. 2 and 5 we are combining. Yes. Good. We are combining 2 and 5 over here. Yes. How we see the order? Okay, I'll tell you. See, this height tells the when the first got merged. So 3 and 6, they got merged first over there, right? Because they had the minimum distance. The next merging is at this level. The next merging is between 2 and 5. So 2 and 5, they got merged as per the max link. Okay. Now after that, okay, considering the max link, now which will be the next merge? Okay, so the two left over points are this 1 and 4, right? Or even we can merge 2 and 1. So if you want to merge 1 and 2, then we need to see this distance, the distance between 1 and 5. If we want to merge this cluster 1 and 4, then we need to see the farthest distance, that is 0.4 and 0.6. And if we want to merge the cluster 2 and cluster 1, then we need to see the cluster distance that is between 5 and 6, right? So which is closest in this? I think this between 4 and 6. So between cluster 1 and the 0.4, and that is what is the next. So basically this gets clustered as per this link. Okay. After that, the next one is this, and the next one is this. So based on what the link we are using, we are getting different hierarchical clustering results. Okay. Okay, if we do this, the same thing using the average, then the clustering goes this way. Okay, I'm just going quickly now, the clustering based on the average, and we are getting these dendrograms, right? All these methods, they have their weaknesses and their strengths. Okay, Now let's say in one diagram we compare single link, complete link, average link, and the centroid distances. Okay, so let's say in the first iteration itself, right? In all the four cases, 3 6 3 6 they got merged because all the single point cluster, right? So the distance matrix, they have the minimum distance. Next is 5 2. Okay, in all the cases 5 2 got. Okay, now in the third iteration, you see in single link 2 and 3 they were the closest over here, so it merged it this way in case of single link. Okay, in case of complete link, where we see the farthest distance, so from the criteria of the farthest distance, these two clusters, they were the closest, so it merged it in this way, right? In the average link, okay, basically it merged in this way, right? Okay, I will just keep clicking it. So based on the various criterias, different kinds of clustering, they are taking place, okay, and we are getting different kinds of the dendrograms over here for this. Okay, so we need to choose the proper linkages for this. Okay, in the Watts method, we are trying to uh, choose those kind of merging due to which the objective function that is minimized. Okay, so this is also demonstrated over here. Here, instead of, we are using mean, max, group average, and WOD over. Instead of centroid, now here we are using WOD. Okay, I'll just keep going to see just the differences. Okay, the explanation will take lots of time. Okay, so the basic idea is this method, based on the finding out the differences between the clusters, the clustering, they are changing over here. Okay, yeah, see the dendrogram, they are very useful. Okay, we can use the dendrograms. See, if you see this dendrogram, from this dendrogram, it is very obvious that there are two clusters. This is the data which is on the left hand side. It's a dendrogram is over here. So we can see that the two separate clusters are there. So many times through the dendrogram also we get an idea about the clustering. Not always. Sometimes it is very ambiguous, but sometimes we get like how many clusters are there. Okay, even sometimes we can get the idea about the outliers. If we see the data on the left hand side, there are two clusters and there is one point which is the outlier. If we draw the dendrogram for this, then in that case, see, we see these two clusters and then there is a singleton cluster over, a singleton point, a singleton cluster, a single point cluster over here. A single point cluster which is, that is telling that this is outlier. Now, which distance measure is better? Single link, it can find the irregular shaped clusters, but it is sensitive to outliers and suffers so-called chaining effects. Complete link, average link, and centroid, they are robust to outliers. They tend to break the large clusters and they prefer spherical clusters. Okay, so yes, the time complexity, the space-time complexity is of the order of O(n) square, where n is the number of objects, and it is the space complexity, how much space you need, and the time complexity is of the order of O(n) cube. Okay, or it can be reduced with some optimization to n square log n also. Okay, so the computationally, right, expensive. Okay, now there are two variations: Agnes, which is agglomerative, right, bottom up, and the other is Dyna, which is divisive, like from top to bottom, Dyna. In Dyna, basically, we choose all the objects as the single cluster initially. Then we try to locate an object which is very different from the other object. Okay, so let's say an object whose distance is maximum from the maybe the center, or maybe some based on some other criteria. Okay, that is identified. Okay, so we form, let's say we put that object into another cluster. That is the most probable candidate for to be separated. Okay, now once we separated it, after that how do we process? Okay, for each object, right, tell whether it is more closest to C. Yeah, once we got another cluster C1, so now we need to find out whether every object it is more close to this cluster or that cluster. That we need to see for every object. So we need to find out the average distance from the cluster, and that way all those objects which are more close to the another cluster, they are shifted to that cluster. That way we are dividing our the clustering. Okay, so this is dyna. Okay, now I think I will move to the demonstration of hierarchical clustering. Okay, hierarchical clustering in R. So there are basically multiple ways of doing it. So for agglomerative hierarchical clustering, we have two methods. One method is hclust, hierarchical clust. That is a function. It is provided in a stats package of R. Another method is Agnes, which is provided in the cluster package of R. Both perform the agglomerative clustering. Then for the DVG clustering, we have one method called dyna in the cluster package. So we'll see that demonstration. Okay. So the required libraries, I am importing, loading the libraries. Our data I have kept same, the US crimes data. Okay. So I have loaded the data. Okay. Now, okay. As we know that the hierarchical clustering, it needs the distance matrix, right? So here we are creating the distance matrix. Okay. How do we create the distance matrix? We are using the dist function for this. And we can specify our distance measurement is based on which dissimilarity distance. So I'm specifying over here the Euclidean. The other options are we can have Manhattan, we can have Canberra, we can have a maximum, that is L infinity norm. If our attributes are binary, then binary. Minkowski, in that case, we can specify the value of R. Okay. So here we are taking the simple one, the Euclidean. Okay. So I am computing the distance matrix. Okay, D. So D is our distance matrix. It is giving us, okay, basically it will have, it is n by n. So if there are 50 states, it is 50 by 50 matrix. It is. Okay. Now I am calling hclust over here. Okay. This is the hierarchical clustering method. Okay. As we know that for the hierarchical clustering, we need to specify how to measure the distance between the cluster. There are various options for this, right? So I have specified over here complete. I want to use the complete linkage. Complete linkage means I am telling the distance between the two clusters is the distance between the two farthest points in that particular cluster. Okay, so using that I am creating. Okay, so the result of my clustering, it is appearing in HC1. Okay, HC1 is my output, because we are doing this clustering multiple times, so I am giving the name HC1, HC2, etc. Okay, if I print it, it will give me various things. Okay, over there. Okay, let me see. Okay, it's a component I'm seeing. HCV.1 dollar method. So method is we use complete linkage method. Okay, how the clusters are merged? If we do this HC1 dollar merge, then see it is giving me the whole this from. So it first merged this, I think, yeah. The singleton objects, they are specified as negative. So basically the 15 and 29, they are merged over there. So this negative sign tells that they are the singleton object. 15, 29 got merged first, then 13, 32, then 14, 16, 23, 49. Okay. After that, the object number 36, it got merged with cluster number 3. So this 3 is positive over here. So this 3 is basically the cluster number 3, and the cluster number 3, it consists of the objects 14 and 16. That way. So the merge order that is there. So you can see the merge order over there. Okay. Then the height of the dendrogram, it will tell the like heights basically, and that the distances. Okay. Then the order also, order basically tells that which order is suggested for the merging, so that the dendrogram to be in a proper shape. Okay, so the ordering that you can get through this. Okay, labels is basically, yeah, the labels of the states over here in this particular case. Okay, now let's say we want to plot the dendrogram. So we are using the plot. Okay, we are specifying the output of the clustering. There are various other parameters which we need to see in the help and in the documentation. Okay, I have specified the color as blue. Okay, and the name I have given agglomerative hierarchical clustering. I have given the labels to the X and Y axis. X axis US states, and Y axis label is height. Okay, and I'm trying to draw the dendrogram. Okay, if I draw the dendrogram, see, drawn the dendrogram. Let me zoom it. See, so you see the dendrogram over here. This. So nicely it is telling that which states they are the closest in terms of the, so if we see the height, so which one has the, which merges first over here? I think this Iowa and New Hampshire, this is, they have the closest distance. If I am not wrong, then that is okay. We can always see that in the merge order. In the merge order, the merge that HC1 dollar merge, we will get which one are the first. But here we can see the Iowa and New Hampshire. Then after that, the next high is, I think this, the Illinois and the New York, they are okay. Then after that, that way. So the heights, they are telling the closeness. As per what criteria? We are using the this maximum link over there, right? So we are getting the dendrogram in a nice way. Okay. Now, okay, let's say we perform the same thing, the hierarchical clustering, but we change the link to the single link. Okay. So I have changed the link to the single link, and I will draw my dendrogram again. So it will result in a different kind of dendrogram. See, I'm displaying the old dendrogram with the complete link. See, it is a little bit symmetrical, like two large clusters, and yeah. So we won't remember, but there will be some difference if we do it with the single link over here. Okay, anyway, the plots we can draw side by side. Okay, that also we can do it. Okay, but I'm not going to do it now. Okay, so we plotted, I have given the red color for this. Okay, so if I zoom it, see, through the single link, it is not that symmetrical, is it not? Yeah. So based on the single link criteria, it finds out the distance between the cluster based on the closest point. So this is the hierarchical clustering structure. Okay. Now let's say the average link we are using. We'll see and we'll plot with the average link. Okay. It's coming to be right here. See, this is the average link over here. Then I am using the centroid method. Centroid means we take the centroid of the cluster and the distance between the centroids, and I am drawing the dendrogram using centroids. Okay, so we are getting a different clustering over here. Then there are two more links. One is median. Like we have the centroid, we are taking the distance between the centroid. Similarly, we can take the distance between the medians. Okay, so if we do that, use that, then we are getting this kind of dendrogram with medians. Okay, and the last one, we are using the word linkage. As I said, in the word linkage, it tries to minimize the sum of the squared error. Okay, if we do this using the word link, okay, we are getting this kind of clustering over there. Okay, okay, yeah. I'll kill this. Okay. Now, let's use the Agnes function. We use hclust, right? We use hclust. Now we can use Agnes function also over here for this agglomerative clustering. I'm doing this. Now I will go fast, right? So here again, we can see the merge order, height order, everything through the Agnes. Okay. And we can compute even the hierarchical coefficients of it. Okay, I am looking for a graph plotting. Okay, so PL tree. Okay, yeah. Okay, so using various kinds of linkages. Okay, I am using HC8, means when I'm using Agnes and my this link is single link, then what kind of cluster I am getting is this PL tree. Yes. So I am using Agnes and single link. Then this is my clustering. If I use Agnes and average link, then this is the clustering H9 here. Okay. Right? Yes. So I will just, because I want to go for the density based clustering also, I'm just telling you that the DINA can be, the DBG clustering can be done by making a call to DINA. And here, see here, we DBG clustering, DINA, okay. We got the output 12. And if I draw the tree for this dendrogram, so this is the dendrogram, this is top-down clustering, it's a dendrogram is over here. Okay, so let's stop for the hierarchical clustering over here, and let me quickly tell you about the density based clustering. I'll tell quickly, and after that I'll give one demonstration for the density based clustering. Okay, in density based clustering, basically what we are seeing, when we form the clusters of the points, we are looking for in a radius, a specified radius epsilon, are there a minimum certain number of points over there? Okay, if that is the case, then we tell that as a core point. Okay, so we identify the core points, we identify the border points. Okay, that way we keep going in the neighborhood of a point, and we connect them in the form of a cluster. So there is a terminology called density density reachable. So here P is density reachable from Q if that criteria satisfied. Then there's a concept of the points which are density connected. So if they are very close in the density, then they all will be grouped in a single cluster. So through the DB scan, that is one kind of the density based clustering. Basically, we want to cluster based on the density regions. So we may get the clusters which are non-spherical also. The k-means k-medoid clustering, basically they result in the clusters which are spherical shape. And here you can get the different kinds of clusters also. So a little demonstration. See, we start from a point over here. Okay, then we go into it's a neighborhood, and we keep connecting them. So we got one cluster. This is one cluster. We got one point. There's no point in its neighborhood. It is an outlier. Then we started from the other point. We got in neighborhood of it, and we got another cluster. Okay, so this way, so we can get the clusters of the arbitrary shape. We can get here the clusters of different shapes over here. Let me give the demonstration of this on this. So that way we'll just have like how to do it over there. Now I will show you the demonstration of the DB scan. Okay. So basically, this is my last thing, how to execute this DB scan in R. Okay. Then after that, I think our time will be over. Okay. So I'm just running this. Okay. My data is multi-shapes. Okay. So multi-shapes data, it is in DF. Okay. Okay, if I apply on this data the k-means algorithm, on this data, if I apply the k-means algorithm and I visualize it, how does it look? I will show that first to you. Okay, so see, this data is, okay, I will show this data. Okay, you can see this data. The data is multi-shape data. Okay, we applied the k-means algorithm with k equal to 5. With the k equal to 5. So it resulted in one cluster. There's all this, the brown ones, right? Different colors, they are telling this one cluster, one cluster. So basically there are 5 clusters, but the k-means wrongly classified it, because the k-means cluster, they look for the centers over there. Okay, so they have this one cluster like that, right? So in that case, k-means is not very suitable. We'll apply the DB scan on the same data points. Okay, so let me go to this. Okay, same data, DB scan. Okay, I'm using the library FPC for this, and now I'm applying the DB scan. I'm calling the DB scan function. Here I need to specify 2 things. One is, what is my radius of the neighborhood, epsilon. So I am giving 0.15. How to reach to it, that is another research that can be found through some other functions which we cannot discuss it over here. And I am telling that the minimum number of points in this radius should be 5. Okay, that I am specifying. I am calling DB scan over here. So I am calling DB scan. Okay, so I got the output. Let me visualize the output. We saw the result of the k-means clustering. Now we'll see the result of clustering using the DB scan. Okay, if I visualize it, what is the output? I'll zoom the output. See, all this blue, this is one cluster. This yellow, this is another cluster. This gray ones, they are the one cluster. This red ones, they are one clusters. And this another shape, this is one cluster. Rest of them, they are the outliers, right? So the DB scan in such kind of the data sets, it is doing the clustering in much better way than this. And you need not specify even k also, but you need to specify the radius, epsilon you need to specify, and the minimum number of points in that you can specify. Okay, so basically this was the demonstration. So I'll just summarize. Today we started with the clustering concepts, right? The applications of the clustering. Then after that, how to measure the similarity, dissimilarity between the objects, the desired properties of the clustering, then various clustering methods. Okay, then in between we learned how to install R and RStudio. Okay, and how to do some preliminary work of the data analytics on R, including the exploring the data and the data visualization, which we did on the IRIS data set. Okay. After that, we did a demonstration of the data pre-processing, right? How to handle the missing values, how to scale the values, how to convert the categorical data into the numerical codes and all those. Then we started discussing with the partition-based clustering, right? K-means clustering. We discussed its advantages, disadvantages. Then we went for its demonstration. It's the improvement we discussed in the form of K-medoids clustering. And in K-medoids clustering, we discussed about PAM and Clara. Then we did a demonstration of the PAM, okay? Then we came to the hierarchical clustering, both the bottom up and the top down, right? So we did its demonstration, Agnes, Dinah, and the H cluster, okay? Then after that, quickly, we just did a briefing about the density-based clustering DB-scan, and then we did a demonstration of it that in certain cases, right, how DB-scan can perform in a much better way than the partitional-based clustering, okay? So I think for today, this is what I could cover, okay? I thank all of you for your patience. Okay, if there are any questions or anything, I can take it.
So thank you for the wonderful session on clustering techniques, sir. So next we move on to the question and answer session. So we have questions from the participants. The first question is, how do you compare R and Python programming?
Oh, this question I always expect, like comparison between R and Python. This is a easy question also. It is a difficult question also. Okay. See, both are being used for the data analytics and machine learning rigorously. But Python is a general purpose language. Okay. Python can work in many more domains as compared with R, because R was developed for the statistical analysis and the data analytics purpose. This R has a very rich libraries, more than 10,000 libraries. Almost everything you will find out. But I feel that in the approach what has been used in Python, that is more systematic. Usually in R, the same thing you can do in different ways. You use this cluster or that cluster, you do this way, that way. So it is good also. There is more flexibility and sometimes confusion also for the people to remember this or that. And in case of Python, many things, they are well defined. Python is strong in certain part, this natural language processing and it's that deep learning part, it's quite good. So I will tell that if you don't know both the languages, then in that case, anything is fine, I'll say, as far as this R and Python, both will be equally good. In R, you will get even more compact code as compared with Python. Python programming, so for various things, in fact, there are more steps are required. Not for all the thing. Many places they are comparable, but many places more code is required for Python. Okay, but syntax-wise, I think Python is more easy than this R. So if you are using Python, you just keep using it. If you don't know both the languages, then R maybe in a shorter code, you can get the things done in R. Okay, lots of libraries are there.
So next question, sir. Okay, next question. What is the best clustering method for a particular data set?
It depends on what data set you are using. It is data set to data set. It depends on, like with the last data set which we saw, the last data set. So basically, before applying to the clustering, we try to visualize our data also. What distribution pattern is there in the data, right? If we find that our data is a specific, a normal distribution pattern around a center or something, it is there, then K-means, K-medoids, they are the best algorithms. But if our data is non-spherical shape and all those, then maybe this. For certain data where hierarchies are there inbuilt in the data, maybe hierarchical clustering will be the best. So it depends on the data on which you are going to work.
Next, can we merge the text image and picture image using clustering techniques?
Can we merge text image and
Picture image.
yeah, you need to find out some similarity criteria. If you are if both are the images, both are images only, right? Text image is an image,
Yeah,
and picture image is an image, right? Both are having the pixels, right? So you need to find out the dissimilarity between those two pictures. Some dissimilarity, some image dissimilarity measure you need to use. You can do the clustering if you have a dissimilarity measurement criteria for that, a measure, you can do the clustering based on that also.
Okay. So next, how is hierarchical clustering dendrogram different from Huffman coding algorithm?
Compared to what?
Hierarchical clustering dendrogram and Huffman coding algorithm. So whether it uses Huffman coding?
I am not aware of. I do not know the Huffman coding algorithm. Okay, so I will not be able to answer this question. Okay.
So how to know when to go for clustering and when to go for classification?
It's a very clear, right? If your data does not have you do not have the training data. If you do not have the training data, I mean, you do not have the labels. You just have the objects. You have no idea about what are the categories. Then in that case, you do not have any option than going for the clustering. You cannot go for the classification. For classification, you need the training set. And for the training set, you need the labels. If your data does not have the labels, how will you go for the classification? You cannot do it. Then you can go for the clustering. But if you have a data which has the label also, then in that case, it's your choice. Usually classification is used for that purpose. Although k-means is being used even for those data, like I have seen performing k-means on this data, iris data, k-means. Then in that case, what we do is we perform the clustering, but we ignore the label column, okay? So the simple answer is if your data is unlabeled. See, in the beginning, I shown those right diagrams, right? Cats, they are there. We don't have the label. The cats, the categories of the cats, they are not there. So I have to go for the clustering. But the other things which had the label, in that case, I will go for the classification.
So how to obtain or create a good, valid and useful data set for the research, particularly in medical field?
Obtained, okay. Very difficult question. How to generate? I don't think, right, we'll be generating, like, I don't know, maybe some study needs to be done, the statistical generation of the data set, which basically we need to find out the patterns. Somebody have to study the medical, like, let's say the ECG and all those, how they are varying and all those. If we do not have the real that, and we want to generate it using some function or that some statistical tools, they are required. Yeah, but the medical data, since medical study is sensitive, and this result, when we say that it is on a medical data, basically that matter that is related to the life, I'll say that somehow we need to struggle to find out the data from the hospitals, or if we are not able to, then we need to Google whatever the minimum data we can find out from the internet, from the various repositories. Then, yeah, if we got the data, then maybe we can augment the data using some data augmentation techniques. That is possible. We can increase it. But to create the medical data from the scratch, I am not aware like how to do that.
Because the question was getting the data set from medical or hospital is very difficult. And so continued with that, continuation of that question actually, how effectively will be the clustering technique on the medical data?
Very, very effective. Image segmentation. image segmentation very popularly being used, like to identify the tumors, brain tumors, or lung cancer, or various the clustering techniques. They are being used. Sometimes clustering plus classification both are required. Okay, but the image segmentations and this the age identification and for it is being used, and the results have been published in the good journals. It is being used.
Okay, the last question. Can clustering technique be used during regrouping of the nodes in mobile networks to avoid congestion in data transfer?
Why not? Yes, you can do the regrouping, but provided if you have the characteristics of the node and you know the criteria based on which you want to group them, right? Wherever we have the objects, so here the nodes are the objects, right? Nodes are the objects. If we have the required characteristics or attributes based on which we would like to say that these are similar, those are similar, right? Similarity measure and the characteristics, we can always apply it. So for traffic, what I discussed from the application, right? To find out, to identify the abnormal traffic or the harmful traffic, for that basically the network traffic sources, they were categorized, and based on that it was identified. So such kind of things, I think it's possible.
So here we come to the end of day 2 sessions. So I, Professor Muhammad Hafiz MK, on behalf of Department of Computer Science Engineering, EA College of Engineering, feel privileged to wholeheartedly extend my gratitude of having Dr. Zahid Ansari, Professor Computer Science and Engineering and Dean Research, as the speaker of today's session. I am sure the fine-grained theory concept followed by an excellent hands-on session by the eminent speaker would have given all the participants a complete exposure in materializing or conceptualizing and understanding even the highly complicated topics in a very simplest way. I affirm that the participants will have a lot of takeaway from this highly knowledgeable session and help have an exponential leap in their research progress. And those who have not started with research, this excellent session by Dr. Zahid Ansari sir would have triggered their brain with ideas to kickstart their research immediately. Thank you for such a wonderful and highly informative session, plus for the patience and earnest attempt to reach every enthusiastic minds. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.